So usually when we're representing the brand, if we're asked to remove, we can leave them in the feed where they appeared historically, but won't re-interact with them. So that's one of the things that's negotiated. And of course, you always want to provide in your agreement that any content they create is owned by you as the brand, other than, their name and their image that appears in it, but you want it to be your content and owned by you, because you don't really want them using it in another way or owning it and preventing you from using it.
Hello, everyone. At my last brand, we'd approached a celebrity for a big ambassador deal, but I was totally lost when they asked me to send over a proposal. I didn't know where to start, what to put in the contract, and most importantly, what could go wrong. So lucky for you, today we've got the perfect guest to lay all of that out. It is the one and only Hillary Hughes. She's one of the best-known lawyers in the space. She leads the consumer sector and sports and entertainment industry groups at Foster Garvey, which is one of the best-known law firms in CPG. So today we're going to talk about the key components of celebrity and influencer agreements. We're going to go through common pitfalls you should watch out for, and Hillary's recommendations for any brands that are going to go down this route. Her incredible experience can save you tons of headaches, believe me. If you want to chat with her team, head to foster.com. All right, let's do it. Enjoy. All right, Hillary, I'm excited to just jump in on this topic. So let's start out with some obvious examples everyone knows about. So like when you see George Clooney's tequila, or like The Rock's energy drink, Katy Perry's non-alc, what is the business relationship actually like in those cases?
Well, I don't know the specifics of those, right? Because that's all kind of confidential information. But they usually take a number of different forms. Either the celebrity decides that it wants to found its own brand, and it has usually an operating partner, or it can staff up from scratch and build its own separate entity and business operation. Or it's more of a kind of paid endorsement arrangement. And those can fall into two buckets. One is just pure cash compensation. One is equity partnership. And then there can be, a combination of both. And cash can be just a straight fee for services. It can be a royalty deal. It can be more of a traditional affiliate marketing type arrangement. So they can take different structures, but those are the most common.
Okay, and let's take the instance where they're getting paid in cash and or equity to do stuff. What are you paying them to do?
Usually it's a combination. It's the right to use their name and image, could be even more than that, their autograph or something on a product. And it's their brand, right? You're paying for their brand. It's almost like a co-branding arrangement, right? Where you're the main brand and you're bringing in another brand to help promote and endorse and get some visibility on the product or the overall brand. And you're paying them maybe to make appearances. They can show up. A good use of them would be to get them to show up at buyer meetings or at trade shows, right? Everybody's going to want to stop at the booth that has celebrity X, Y, or Z there signing autographs or talking about the product. But buyer meetings is another good use that people don't often think about, right? Because it's easier to get the right people in the room at a Target or a Walmart or something. If you say, "Hey, we're bringing our celebrity endorser in tow, and everybody wants to meet them," so that's another good way to use them. And then, of course, events. If you're holding an event, you can have them do autograph signings at a retailer, which is another thing buyers love, when you can do what's called an activation at a retailer and get people to the store to obviously see the celebrity, get an autograph, buy some products, and then go shopping and buy a bunch of other things too. So it's a real win for a retailer if you can deliver something like that.
Yeah, you can kind of back into it if you think like, well, what would be important to the buyer? Okay, they would want like X number of videos filmed in their store, maybe of the celebrity going in there, posted on their channel, or doing demos there, and everyone else is going to post about it. And it makes like ultimately, what do buyers want? They want more people going into their store, right?
Absolutely.
People who shop other places or in other channels or whatever, just like new shoppers from their store, but also who don't shop their set, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, and also it extends into the online world too, right? They don't just want shoppers going into their store, but they want them checking out their social media, their websites, buying products online. So it all just, the partnership is announced, and then there's almost an implied endorsement of, that buyer, that retailer, as well by the celebrity. It's indirect, but it's still, hey, they're endorsing a brand that maybe has an exclusive or is launching just at Target or at Walmart.
So, what are some of the ranges that you've seen on like cash, equity, in some of these different scenarios?
It's ranges in terms of amounts. I mean, it really varies, right? So celebrities, they're different caliber celebrities, right? You hear, an A-lister, right? That's often said, but there's up and coming celebrities too, and so they tend to have a quote for what their services cost, but all of that has to be scoped out. You're going to have to kind of define or put parameters on what you're envisioning, what your wish list is, and the more services you're requiring, or the longer the term, or the larger the scope of exclusivity, which we should talk about too, typically the more expensive it is. Signing a deal with an up and coming, personality will cost you less than one that's already really established. And then using them for in-person activations versus just sort of social media posts cost you more because that's their time, right? They have to fly somewhere, go somewhere, be, tied up for however many hours. So how you're using them is directly related to the cost. Are you putting them, just on social media, or do you want print advertisements in magazines? Do you want large billboards in Times Square? So usually how you're using them in terms of their services, what channels you're going to use their name and image, and then of course, what the scope of exclusivity is that you're gonna require them.
Okay, so this really gets to like what are the key elements of the contract that you would have with them, right? So the actual payments and like what are the channels, the exclusivity, which can be duration, but also what is the scope of it? Like if you are a candy bar, are they just excluded from any other candy bars or any other snacks or anything that would be like sugary or looked at as an energy source, right?
That's right, and that's the exact scope that costs more or less, right? So if you're a beverage, are you blocking them out in all beverage, or are you just blocking them out in, waters and sparkling waters, or is it, soda, all soda? You really have to as you drink your soda, you really
Yes,
have to
I'm not being paid to drink my soda, unfortunately.
You have to really scope out because the broader the scope of exclusivity, then it's the less deal opportunities they're gonna have during the term of your partnership with them. So that means, arguably revenue left on the table, so they need to be earning more from this partnership.
Okay, so when I'm creating the contract, those are the kind of things that I need to put down. Obviously, number one, how are you going to be compensated? But that should be basically a function of like what are you actually asking them to do. So, what do you want to use of theirs, their likeness, their name? Do they actually need to show up to things? Are they going to need to go and actually do like meet and greets at a trade show or at a store? And obviously, that's a big opportunity cost for them. The busier that they get, the more it will cost them to do that. And then, yeah, compensation, which can be, yeah, cash equity. I also have seen like royalties negotiated in some of those or like affiliate stuff built in.
You wanna figure out what makes sense for your brand and where your brand is at the point in time that you're working with a celebrity or an influencer, and where you're gonna be and where your growth areas of growth are, where you're gonna get the most bang for the buck. And much of that relies on your own analysis of your brand and where it is and its positioning and where your target demographic is. Choosing the right celebrity is also part of the challenge. You need to figure out who's got an audience that's in your product or your brand's target demographic, and so that is going to expose you to new likely viable customers. So you really need to align there. And there are things to evaluate. Each celebrity has something called a Q score, which, all CPG brands are familiar with, Nielsen IQ and spins and that sort of thing. It's a similar data, but instead of on a product, it's on celebrities. And it basically tells you survey data on their familiarity. So consumers' familiarity with the celebrity, and then their positive association with them. So it's two different components. to this Q score. So that can be very helpful. But really taking a look at their social media and who's commenting on them, how they're engaging with their fans and followers. That's something you want to see and make sure it's good brand alignment there too. And when you're structuring the compensation and thinking about sort of more of an affiliate marketing or royalty arrangement, those can get more complicated because you want to really tie it to the value that the celebrity's bringing, separate and apart from whatever momentum the brand has on its own before the partnership. So you want to try and structure the compensation in a way that's really adding compensation for value they're bringing and adding that you didn't already have and weren't already on track for. So that can be hard to structure and measure. And also on the affiliate side of things, asking a celebrity to post a website or a link or a code. Some celebrities don't want to do that because they feel like it makes them appear as a walking billboard or endorsement for a product, and then it doesn't feel organic or as organic, and can erode what you're trying to accomplish. So when you're looking at the affiliate side of things, be aware that the celebrity and their team, and they have a large team of advisors. Usually they'll have an agent, maybe a manager, they have a lawyer, publicist. All these people get involved in negotiating and structuring their deals. And they are also not going to want the celebrity to appear like a walking billboard that's throwing out, purchase codes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I've worked with ambassadors like that where they're just like, "No, no, we got this. Like, we know how to integrate your product. It'll be very subtle and organic and grassroots. It'll be really cool." And then you're like, "Did any of them actually know that that was a video about our product? I don't think so. We didn't get any followers, didn't get any sales." So it can go both ways, right? Which I think also comes back to, why do you partner with the ambassador? What do you actually need out of them? Because there can be a lot of benefits, right? One, I mean, just being associated with them will get you some meetings with retail buyers who know who they are, who are fans of theirs, or it just might like check a box with an investor, like, yes, they have an association with a celebrity. Um, but then, I mean, really, like, yeah, like you mentioned, they really have to fit with your brand, right? So it is a kind of a partnership that makes sense and it gets you access to actually what your core consumer is, right? Which should be part of your overall marketing strategy. But then, like, really, what is the thing that they're doing for you at that point? Like, are you even in enough retail where if they do an Instagram video, people can actually then find your product and they've seen it on that person's page or post, and now they can see it in the stores? Otherwise, that could just be some media that, goes out into the ether, after the video scrolls down their feed a little bit.
You really need to not just go with a gut of, oh, this has always been one of my favorite celebrities. Let's bring them on as a brand ambassador. It really should be a thoughtful process of making sure their brand is aligned and their messaging and, how they interact with their fans and how their fans and followers respond to them, because you truly want it to add value.
So tell me, this is what I've heard basically from some brands who do a lot of these kind of deals. They said, okay, if this was a more mature brand, and I was asking them how much some of these different kinds of contracts cost them, and they're like, well, like, if you're giving them equity and you're at a more mature stage, they're a fan of the brand, they just think of it as cash, so they'll do some kind of a calculation based off the equity that you're giving them, and they would be charging X amount for whatever. So you can do a kind of like, okay, if you have 100,000 followers or you have a million followers and you want one post from them, they kind of know what the value of that is, whether it's $5,000 or it's $50,000, depending on how many followers and the kind of engagement they have. So basically, if you're just trying to give them equity, it needs to be an amount that would kind of compensate them for the amount of risk that they're taking. If they're willing to take only equity, it means they must also kind of believe in your company and think that the equity is going to be worth something. I've seen companies where it would have been very hard for them to raise, but they were just dishing out equity, getting a lot of people to post about them. I don't know how that worked out for anyone in the long run, but yeah, that was one strategy. And then I also have been down the road where I was talking to the talent agencies trying to get AAA level talent. We're talking about the like, Chris Pratts of the world, like really expensive people of like, wouldn't it be cool? Like, couldn't we, have a really nice thing with them? And that was actually such a difficult path to go down, especially I think when you get the top tier, United Talent, like CAAs involved, because, well, now they got to have their cut too. And so what they were asking is they're like, send us the proposal. before you even talk to the person. Like before you even find out if they like your product or whatever, they're just like, send us the actual, cash and equity proposal. And by the way, this person's opportunity cost is millions of dollars per year. So it just became like, why don't you just give them the whole company and then that's it? It was like almost impossible to do a deal with a big celebrity in that way. And like, I don't know, but the other company that I was talking about, they had a lot more success in working through personal relationships to get in touch with celebrities, I would say more directly or through investors or friends, and found them to be more engaged that way also.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind the talent agent's role, right? They don't want to be in a position of bringing a deal to the celebrity or the rest of their team that is not kind of vetted and in market. So they're not going to go waste their client's time with a proposal that is they know is not going to be accepted or is not market for that celebrity. So they do want it fleshed out before they'll even consider it, and sometimes before they even, you know, get the product to the celebrity to try. Other times you start with the product being tried first to see if they're even open to discussion. It really depends on the agent, and that can vary within a talent agency from agent to agent how they like to interact with their client. So you have to remember that. And if you're trying to get an equity deal done, that's a tough one too, because again, agents all get compensated with a percentage of what the celebrity makes. So if you're paying only in equity, the agent is also looking at getting their commission in equity. And so sometimes that takes the form of a transfer of shares from the celebrity after they receive them to go to the agent. And sometimes the celebrity basically holds them in trust for the agent, and they're paid out when they're monetized by the celebrity. So if there's an exit in a few years, the celebrity gets their cash amount, and then they pay the cash commission to the talent agent. It depends on the agent and agency how that's handled, but you have to go into the discussion knowing that that's one of the factors you're dealing with, that agents are probably going to prefer to receive compensation in their commission in cash and have to wait multiple years to monetize it in an exit. So those dynamics are kind of there in the background as well.
Yeah. When I was going through the talent agencies, it was, like you might be sending product, but it was their team that was going to try that first, I think, to decide if, they do not want to go to their client with a deal that's not material, that's not a serious offer. Then they'll look like idiots, obviously, when you back out later because you get gun shy about the amount that it's going to take. Right. So I see why they put all that pressure at the front.
Keep in mind that you may get different level of effort out of a celebrity if you're giving equity versus cash. It's unfortunate, but that sometimes is the case. An pure equity deal is very far removed from when they're going to realize the gain from that. And it's not that they're typically not in a position where they need money right now. And so they're not going to do anything unless they have it. But it's sort of more, more tangential. What the value of it is to them, they don't know. It's speculative. The company could go under. The company could exit distressed. The company could exit, for a modest amount. It could exit for a huge amount. So they don't know what it's going to net them, and so sometimes your value and effort you get may be calibrated to that as well. So you have to keep that in mind too. And again, it goes to the celebrity. You want to do your own due diligence too, and understand how they've structured their deals before, and then go back and take a look at some of those partnerships and the degree of effort and brand alignment that you can find publicly available, whether it's, in social media or articles, that sort of thing, to get an idea of, how those equity partnerships went.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard from brands who did have a big equity deal, and they're like, we really thought that they were going to do more, and they don't post about it a lot, and they don't really seem to care. Like, yeah, these celebrities have a lot else going on, right? Even if they're like taking a lottery ticket on this.
For sure. And you have to structure your deal that way, right? So if you're saying, well, they only want to be contractually committed to, 2 posts a year or whatever, you as the brand have to decide if that's all they did, would I be okay with this and feel like I got my money's worth? That's all you can count on, what the hard contractual commitments are. So if you're negotiating for, 2 contractual posts per year, but then somehow you're expecting, oh, but they're getting equity, so they're going to do much more than that, that's not a smart way to proceed with structuring the deal because you may never get more than that and you have to be okay with that. So negotiate terms that you actually would be comfortable living with if that's the minimum you get.
Okay, so if you're talking to a new brand, let's say they're just getting going here, they've got some nice revenue, they've got some good retail distribution, online sales, that stuff. Um, what do you think a successful kind of approach for them is going to look like at the beginning? Like, hey, we're interested in working with, I don't know, influencers, celebrities. What are you recommending them to start doing and asking for from the start?
Well, on the influencer side, and the way I distinguish between the two is, a celebrity is more widely known, and an influencer is usually just a, off the street person who has developed a following with a certain demographic or for a certain type of post or product or service, that sort of thing. Um, those deals will be easier to get done typically because you're usually not dealing with a huge team of professional advisors and competitive bidding and that sort of thing. So from a administrative perspective, it's probably easier to just work with an influencer and likely cheaper. They're also used to it, set up for it, and are know what's required. There's a little less sort of education on an alignment of expectations. So picking an influencer that really seems to move the needle or have a lot of influence in your space, right? If you're a skincare brand, you want somebody who is doing a lot and has a lot of followers who are interested in skincare. Baby product would be, moms that are influencing choices of selecting baby products. So you want to align with the right kind of influencer, and then really dig into how they interact. Again, same with a celebrity; they interact with their followers and fans and find the right one and then approach them to see how they do their deals. Are they interested? Would they be interested in affiliate type arrangement where they're just getting paid on direct sales generated by them, or do they want compensation for any overall lift in sales that you can't specifically attribute to their influence or not? And so, if there's a particular type of demographic you're trying to grow, then an influencer can move the needle for you. If you're already, doing really well, then maybe it's not a good use of funds to bring on an influencer. But if you're trying to go from like a one tier to the next, it can sometimes mean the difference or the at least the speed that you get there.
So what are all the things that can go wrong in that scenario with an influencer? Let's say like, hey, this is a contract that consists of a certain number of posts or videos or them just representing you somehow. The kind of things that immediately come to mind for me are like, you posted, I barely could even see the product or understand that this was an ad for us in some way. Or like, you didn't say that you liked it, which is what I was really hoping that you would do. What are some other things that could go wrong there?
Well, on that front, and how to protect against that is just having mutual approval over anything that's posted. You also want to negotiate for them to share the data on the post, the analytics behind it, so you can get a sense of how it's doing and maybe calibrate how you utilize them going forward based on that data. So you want to make sure you get access to that. Um, Other problems could be they're just not posting on the schedule you contemplated. So agreeing on what that post schedule is going to look like. One other common pitfall is that there's no limitations on what they can post before or after it. So let's say they have multiple deals and they're posting your product 1 hour and then for another one the next hour. So yours is already out of the feed and don't see it. So, sometimes putting what's sometimes called an embargo on the post and brands they can promote for a window before and a window after each post to give yourself, to make it stand out in their feed. So there's some things you can do to increase the likelihood of eyes on it as part of negotiating the terms.
And then there's also, I guess, a question of a little bit of like, I don't know, brand risk or like what else are they actually promoting before yours, even if it's not an exclusivity thing, but like just some weird stuff. You don't know what they're going to get into, right?
Well, weird stuff, undefined, it's hard to kind of protect against. But most celebrity deals do have what's called a morals clause, which says that if they have any kind of scandal essentially associated with them, that you can terminate the deal, maybe get some or all of your money back. Be able to disassociate yourself with them, and that includes in an equity deal being able to claw your equity back if something happens. Things come, celebrities may say something that offends people or do something. and you want to be able to have that lever. And those clauses are fairly common and not unexpected in celebrity deals. So you want to be able to protect the brand by distancing yourself if something goes wrong.
We'll be right back.
All right, we've got a cool new opportunity for brands that are right for the fitness crowd. You know how it really costs a lot of money to get people to sample your product? Like doing demos in the store, you have to pay the agency, get them the product, same for field marketing. Well, great news, we've got a new partner, the Lift Box. It's America's top fitness subscription box, which goes out to 15,000 subscribers per month. You can get in the box. There's no cost to participate, and they actually help you out with some money to cover your cogs because they end up selling the boxes to their subscribers, which means the audience really values the products inside. On top of the money and exposure, you get to take advantage of their product photo shoots, post-sampling surveys, influencer seating, and media opportunities. Check them out. Find out why brands like Lenny and Larry's, Ghost, and Alani Nu use them. If your product would be a fit, visit their website for more information. It's theliftbox.com/partners. That's THELIFTBX.com/partners. It's in the show notes. You obviously have a lot of experience. Do you see those morality clauses or whatever getting acted upon more now? Just like, hey, people get canceled like all the time now. Do you feel like that is a greater risk today than it was, I don't know, 10 years ago?
I think the things that offend people have gone up, the number of opportunities to offend people, um, and so that they get called more often, or things that maybe you wouldn't have anticipated could offend or have backlash, um, do. And so we see them getting invoked a little more often than they used to be, and on the flip side, having them negotiated in more detail, right? Where it just used to be, okay, there's a morals clause and there's a standard. Now we're like fine tuning those and negotiating them. Does it have to be one, bad article about it, or does it have to be, a sustained amount of press, and the press national versus local in some small town somewhere? Like, there are ways to sort of, moderate how a celebrity is going to get tagged with it. On the brand side, you obviously want a broad morals clause that allows you to, pull the ripcord if you need to at any point that there's any kind of hint of scandal or public outrage about something.
Okay. So, let's say you're looking at this long-term relationship, and we talked about exclusivity and over how many years. Like actually, one of my ambassadors explained that to me of like, hey, by the way, it's not just about how long we work with you because it's not like we can really go in enthusiastically with your product and then you stop working with us and then the next day we start enthusiastically endorsing a competitor. Like that doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for our fans, our followers. That like looks weird. So like they really like to commit long term to stuff. Um, how do you see brands having experiences with that? What's the typical duration you see on contracts or that you would recommend, and how has that worked out for brands?
I think 1 to 3 years is probably the most common that I see. Getting longer than that is unusual. And obviously the larger or the longer the deal, the more it costs. You're absolutely right that it usually doesn't play out that as soon as the deal's over in beverage for this brand, they're on to the next beverage brand, and there's this seamless, transition where they're going from promoting one to another. There is usually a gap in between, although when talent agents know a deal in a category is expiring, they often start discussions before that deal is over so that they're better positioned to pick something up shortly after. It's usually not done immediately. But a good agent is kind of planning that out if they're successful in that category, trading up, to a brand that will pay a little more based on maybe some of the success they had for another brand. So yeah, 1 to 3 years I'd say is most common. Again, longer term deals cost you more, but you may not get the value of having a long-term association between the brand and the celebrity.
Okay, so let's say in this era of Chat GPT that I want to do one of these deals and I Chat GPT up a contract. I know it misses a bunch of stuff just based off experience. What do you think it's really going to miss?
Well, that'd be a good experiment for me to try. I have not tried to ask ChatGPT to generate a celebrity endorsement agreement, but that might be an interesting experiment. some of the nuances we've been talking about, I imagine, nuances in a morals clause, nuances of what's expected of the celebrity in terms of scope of services and appearances and, things to ask for, right? It'll know the obvious. It'll know social media posts. It'll know, appearances, but it won't likely have the experience to say, you may want to consider asking the celebrity to attend buyer meetings or pitches with you. It may not have, you may want to ask for autographed merchandise that you can then gift to your largest customers or your buyers or that sort of thing. It may not say, make sure you get, I'm trying to think of another one. Some media opportunities that they're going to agree to a certain number of interviews. I mean, I think it might not have a full repertoire of things to ask for or things that might be most meaningful to a brand, or help you pick a celebrity that fits right. So, and then there, of course, we work with celebrities as well. So you may want on the celebrity side, if there's a royalty component, the celebrity, may not think to ask, I want a marketing plan. I want a marketing budget to show that you're committing dollars to market this product line that I'm endorsing so that I can be assured it's going to generate royalties since that's a huge part of my compensation. So some of these strategies based on sort of things we've seen go right and go wrong, I think can really be value additive from a lawyer advising you on it as opposed to just generating some rando contract from a software program.
Yeah, hard to imagine it would make you think about like, well, do you want them to sign merch and how much exactly? And, I've had that built into deals and it was pretty useful because then we just had stuff that we could use. We could talk to retailers about it like, hey, we're launching with you. Do you want to do on your social media this giveaway with them? And wouldn't that be cool? And that ended up performing actually really well and the retailers like it. And then, yeah, we were able to even you don't know if like which buyers are going to secretly be huge fans of the person you're partnered with. And I've seen other companies, a well-placed signed jersey can go a long way for a lot of people.
For sure. And then there's also like a gifting component. A lot of the deals we structure are you're going to ask the celebrity, for names of either celebrity friends or people in their network that you can then send the free product to and hope that they give some positive review or some photo of them opening it or something like that to get it in the hands of other celebrities and kind of have sort of a secondary network of celebrities using and trying the product. Now, I will give one big caution there that a lot of times brands see a celebrity using a product somewhere online. Sometimes the celebrities even organically post it that they are using a product. And you have to be super careful with that. It's okay to like it. It's okay to say thanks, give a shout out, but you don't want to make it the cornerstone of your marketing campaign because they all have a right of publicity that is a commercial right to license the use of their name and image. And they have not done that for you just because they used it and there's a publicly available photo of it. So you cannot do that without their consent. And brands get into trouble with that a lot.
That is interesting. I actually have never heard that. It makes a lot of sense that that's a rule. So just because you see a photo of Kim Kardashian, eating your product or using your whatever, you can't just go around and start marketing that.
That's right. You can't say, look, Kim Kardashian loves our product. Can't do it. Cannot do it. You can like it. You can say thanks. Maybe you can repost it, although there's a little risk to that.
So you
But
you obviously have seen brands get in trouble for this. So people
oh
have
my
come,
God, I've
yeah,
negotiated settlements for it. Yes, I have.
that's interesting. And what was the outcome in some of those?
I've been the one sometimes sending the nasty letter on the celebrity side of my practice.
I only like to think about your powers being used to help brands, but that makes sense. What was the outcome in some of those scenarios? It was just like a cash amount.
Sometimes it's it depends, right, on the extent of the use, right? And does it, as a matter of fact, we just did one on behalf of a celebrity this week. And the brand took it down. It was one quick post. Sorry, mea culpa. That was it. That was the end of it. It also depends on the celebrity and their team and how aggressive they are. Sometimes they want to make an example out of a brand so that it serves as a deterrent from other brands doing it. Some brands think, let's just do it once, and then if we get the legal letter, we'll take it down and we'll be all good. That is not a safe strategy because while many times just taking it down is the end of it, many times it's not, and they want to be paid. So, and that can be expensive.
Yeah, depending on the celebrity. And, it's for probably a lot of brands, it's just, ignorance is the reason they do it. It's not
Yeah, absolutely.
intentionality.
You think so and so publicly said they like my product. Why can't I, tell the world about that? You can't because that's their right to say whether they like something or not and then to get paid for endorsing it if you want to use that.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one. So, and then, speaking of legal battles, what are some of the ones that you've been pulled into when you have these contracts, like when it's gone bad and things end up litigious or just, with the lawyers of the respective parties talking about what are some of the things that you guys have had to go to battle over?
Yeah, most of the time it's about whether the equity has been earned. So if you're granting equity and it's subject to vesting, right? There could be time-based, as with any employee grant as well. It could be time-based vesting. That's just merely the passage of time. It could be, other KPIs, key performance indicators of achieving milestones. So once our sales reach X amount, you'll vest into this, whether it's attributable to you, your efforts or not. It could be based on, you making this appearance or you doing that. So a lot of times the disputes are whether something has fully vested or not. Did you had to cancel this appearance? Did you reschedule and do another one? Were you supposed to? Is that earned? So a lot of times it's about whether equity has vested or whether they fully perform their services or satisfactorily perform their services. I'd say those are kind of the most common disputes that we see.
Yeah, it's hard to define some of that stuff. I think I've done contracts where you didn't really know exactly what you were going to ask them to do. Their team also knew some things that they just don't like doing. So, we might end up putting in something that's not like you must do this thing this year, but like we need a couple days of service from you, and we'll agree later on what those things are. But then I could see that being like, well, we want you to do this. We don't want to do that. Okay, now we have a battle.
That's right. That can be a big one. If you're not specific about the services that are required, and also if you're not specific about scheduling and what happens if something has to be canceled. Sometimes the brand is canceling an appearance for whatever reason. Sometimes the celebrity has something come up and they're canceling. Making sure that gets rescheduled during the term and that there's a clear rescheduling obligation, or there's an adjustment of the compensation if if you aren't able to reschedule. So we've also seen, force majeure situations. Celebrity gets sick, celebrity gets hurt, someone in their family gets sick or hurt and they can't go, or there's security concerns. Maybe there's some, I don't know, terrorist activity wherever they're supposed to go or terrorist threats and they don't want to go because they don't feel safe. So just having a framework in your deal with them that deals with what happens if something gets canceled or delayed? Do you get it rescheduled? Does the term get extended so that you can fit it in? Does the compensation get adjusted? And ideally for the brand, you want that to be the brand's decision, right? Because the celebrity might just decide, I'm not getting enough from this partnership. Let's cancel that appearance and just take a small comp adjustment on the deal because we don't want to be in this, or you know what I mean? So you want to have a framework and get the brand as much control and approval and decision making as it can to make sure it gets the value from the deal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, I, having gone through this process, just maybe hadn't thought about like, hey, we're not just getting this, let's say, celebrity, but we also, like, in addition to whatever we budget for them, we need to also budget for the media costs. Like, we're going to need to do a photo shoot or, like, pay them for some photos, stuff like that. And then we also need to have a really nice ad budget so we can tell everybody that we're partnered with them and actually promote that stuff. So I think it's good for brands to kind of know that going in. And then also you do have to have that in the contract. Like, yes, we can use like, you're going to give us some photos and we can actually run ads using those. Right.
That's right. And you want to, when you're thinking about the cost of doing a deal with a celebrity, it's not just, as you pointed out, it's not just their fee, right? You're going to have to pay for travel and hotel. And many times the travel, depending on what caliber celebrity you are, that may be private jet. And those are not cheap. You're picking up the tab for that. The video production, the photo shoot, whatever it is, you usually have to pick up the cost of glam for them. We call it glam. It's, hair, makeup, and wardrobe. Um, security. You may have to pay for security where they are. A green room. You may have to stock. Many celebrities have what's called a rider, a personal rider, to their contract that says, okay, I need a green room everywhere I'm going to be. And the green room must be stocked with this brand of water, this brand of snacks, this number of this number. Sometimes it has to be kept at this temperature. Like there's a whole list of things that they need and require, so that when you're budgeting for a celebrity partnership, there's a lot of those kind of line items that you don't think about that you're going to have to cover as well. And that gets negotiated as part of the deal. So it ends up costing more than just what their fee is.
We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to announce that Startup CPG finally has an official Amazon agency partner. I know a lot of you are looking to Amazon as a great growth channel for this year and beyond, and Daybreak is the best agency that I've come across that will work with emerging brands. They have a really affordable retainer structure. It's a lot less than you'll find with other agencies that might charge you upwards of $5,000 a month, which is crazy. Based on recommendations from this community, I actually worked with Leon for my own brand and had an amazing experience. The sales grew very quickly. We started ranking really high on organic search results and really just capturing search terms in the category. I think he is an amazing fit for brands in this community, and I highly recommend reaching out to him for a chat. You can reach out to him at leon@daybreak.agency. That's LEON at Daybreak, DAYBREAK.agency. Make sure you mention us at Startup CPG so that you can get $600 of free design credits if you end up working with them. Good luck.
And now, back to the show.
And if you go back to the influencer part, which is probably a little bit more straightforward, like, hey, I'm paying you for a certain number of posts or videos. I mean, in that instance, is there stuff that you have to worry about of like, hey, are they going to decide later they don't want you to keep using their content, which was filmed on their phone or whatever, if even after you don't continue working with them?
Yeah, and this is actually one of the things that is negotiated both in an influencer and in a celebrity deal would be, does the brand have to remove the posts once the deal is over? Ideally, for a brand, you get to keep those posts up organically as they appear in the feed, but you really shouldn't be interacting with them anymore, shouldn't be reposting them or liking
Promoting.
them or, promoting them. So usually when we're representing the brand, if we're asked to remove, we can leave them in the feed where they appeared historically, but won't re-interact with them. So that's one of the things that's negotiated. And of course, you always want to provide in your agreement that any content they create is owned by you as the brand, other than, their name and their image that appears in it. But you want it to be your content and owned by you, because you don't really want them using it in another way, or owning it and preventing you from using it.
By the way, it's very interesting to me. The first time I had worked closely with a big time ambassador and they had posted something, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to get 1 million followers when they post this thing? Are we going to get, I had no idea. And I don't know, it ended up being like a couple hundred followers that we get. I don't know, maybe not even that. I think it's just good for brands to have an appropriate expectation about what it means when someone posts about them, whether that's an influencer you pay or a celebrity or something that's even earned or organic. Of like, none of these things is the silver bullet, and now all of a sudden you have 40,000 followers on day one, right? I remember starting out and just even looking at some of the brands that were pretty successful that would be, we hope to compete with someday, and they didn't have huge followings either. I think not so many people just like say, hey, what are they buying? Okay, I'm going to follow that brand and then just start buying it.
And that's a good point. It's not usually follows that are generated from the celebrity. It's more sales, which is what you really want. Would it be nice to get the followers too? Sure. And you can negotiate as part of the term that the celebrity has to follow the brand at least during the term. It'd be hard to get a requirement for them to stay following it after. Although if you're giving equity, sometimes we negotiate that as long as you have equity, you need to follow the brand. So maybe they're not making posts or liking things or interacting it, but you've got them listed as a follower of the brand. But it's more likely that, and I think cosmetics and skincare is one of the most obvious ones, that if you see, a top model using and endorsing a skincare brand, people are running to the store because they want to look like whoever that is, right? They're looking to buy. I'm not following that brand, but I'm sure as heck running to Ulta or Sephora or whatever to buy it because wow, if they're using it on their skin, it must be a good brand. That's kind of what you want, but I don't think you're getting followers always from it.
Yeah, that's the first one I was thinking of when you were saying that was Selena Gomez and some of the like her, she has obviously a beauty line where I love Selena Gomez. If I feel like I would be inclined to just like, I'll buy that. I'll try it. And those are high price point, probably high margin items. I mean, tougher in food and beverage, I think, where you're really relying on people to have a
Well, it
routine.
is, but food and beverage is also a natural fit for celebrities too, because celebrities have to look good, right? They care about what they eat, how they look, how they feel, their stamina, longevity, all of that. So food and beverage is directly correlated with that. Now, does it go a little, further if maybe that celebrity endorser is a fitness or an athlete or somebody who really has to care about what they're fueling their body with, beyond just how they look, but how they perform. Yeah, maybe that goes a little bit further and people are paying attention to that. But I think people really care about what celebrities use, what they use to decorate their home, which isn't necessarily CPG, but it's still consumer goods, what they're decorating the home, what they're driving, what they're using on their skin, what they're eating, what they're using with their kids, what they're wearing. All of this people pay close attention to. I mean, just look at Kendrick Lamar in the halftime show. I mean, that jeans brand he was wearing, a women's jeans brand called Celine. That jeans brand just like got flooded and bombarded with people looking to buy those bell-bottom jeans that he wore in the halftime show. So literally, and you couldn't see the brand name on the jeans as far sorry, I could tell, but of course somebody knew and somebody posted and somebody figured it out and then it was all over the internet. So there's a lot of scrutiny over every aspect of what a celebrity is doing and what choices they're making. So a lot of eyeballs and decisions get made on that.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about because okay, if you go back to the George Clooney tequila example, I like tequila, I drink it. I don't really think I can tell the difference between any of the tequilas, but I feel like the marketing is so important on them that there's like a high value, and I wanna know which tequila George Clooney is drinking, and then, like,
That's
he's
right.
cool, I'm gonna try that. Whereas I don't know, with, like, food and beverage, like, the taste and texture of it is just so important, like, I'm pretty unlikely to keep trying or eating something just because I heard that the celebrity is involved in it. Like, really, the product has to perform in that instance. Whereas if you're talking about, yeah, like it's the tequila, it's hard, So like, I've done blind taste tests with vodka from the most premium to the least premium, and the results made no sense to anybody of just what people actually prefer the taste of. Like a lot of those things, we cannot differentiate them as
I'm with
consumers.
you on that and can't differentiate alcohol, but I'm not a drinker at all anyway. But I think there are a lot of tequila drinkers who probably can tell the difference. And so I'm with you as you switch to a different brand of drink. We're all
Yeah,
good.
I'm on number 2 now. But yeah, I mean, I think about that and like, okay, the Rock came out with his energy drink, and I met a lot of people who were like, "Oh yeah, I bought that because I like The Rock." And I was like, "Well, and then did you like buy it again?" Like, "No, it's not good." And like they were like, I wanted to like it.
They didn't sell through to that customer, but they made that one sale that they wouldn't have made otherwise, right? So there's some value to that.
They really did, and they came out of the gate very strong the first year with that brand, and then their repurchase, I think, was it looked like it was pretty low because their sales kinda plummeted. I think everyone was like, "Yeah, we like this." Whoa, that is not good. That's aggressively bad. And then I think they reformulated a couple times and rebranded, so I don't know how they're doing now, but, it seemed like the alignment was right. Like, yes, he was the right person for that brand. It made a lot of sense, the branding, looked like cool and he's cool. And then it was like,
Well,
whoa,
but
where
you're
do we go
bringing
with
up a
this?
good point, right? Your product does still ultimately need to stand on its own. A celebrity or influencer partnership can get you more eyeballs on it. But if it's not a good product and it doesn't taste good or perform well or whatever it is, then you're not going to get the sell through on it, likely, even because The Rock is using it or Chris Pratt or George Clooney. So you still need a good quality brand, but it can get you more eyeballs on it and get you that sale for somebody to try it who might not otherwise have tried it or picked it out.
Yeah. And I also remember like there were some viral moments a year or 2 ago. I think it's like the Cocoa 5 drink or something. Anyways, there were a couple athletes who were really aggressively pushing it into NBA pressers where I don't even think they were supposed to be, but it was, like, getting so much attention for the brand. And, I remember seeing, like, Cristiano Ronaldo pulling, like, water in, right? I mean, like, "Soda, no. Water, agua, si." You're like and man,
Well,
it's
a
so
lot of those post match, post game interviews, the league has a sponsor, a water brand that they have to have out for all the athletes interviewing. And so most of the athletes that have an endorsement relationship with another water brand will just leave it there and not interact with it, so that they're not, violating their exclusivity obligations to the brand they're behind. But you have to know, again, not being in the industry, you might not know that some of that goes on. You might not know to negotiate that with, as part of the deal and say that, okay, if you need a carve out for, sponsorship of your team or your league that you don't have control over, you're at least going to agree not to interact with that product, even if it's out and available.
right, yeah, leagues or events often will have, yeah, food or beverage sponsors or apparel sponsors that might get in the way of you wanting them to, like, wear your hat, for
For sure.
example. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just coming back to the media question, what percent would you say of celebrity deals you do, like, do they specify the celebrity, they have their own media team or photographer and they will do the content for this and send it to you. You don't don't send us some random photographer to try to do this.
So I think what we most see is if you're doing a photo shoot or video shoot to get assets that you can use for the brand, right? You want a little mini commercial that you're going to use online or some post content or whatever, or an ad that you're going to mock up. You're usually paying for a production company or somebody to handle production of those assets. Yeah, if you're just looking for headshots, the celebrity usually has a stable of them that they can provide you with, um, as part of the deal. But usually, if you're investing in a partnership and you want new, fresh content, you're paying and arranging for the shoot. You also typically are arranging for the media interviews, whether it's a phone interview or in person interviews. You're doing the arranging for that. You're going to have to coordinate with the celebrity's publicist and agent to make sure the dates work, make sure the media outlets are approved. But you're typically, as the brand producing this content, you're arranging for that.
Okay. And then one other question. I think I read somewhere about this truth in advertising thing where, like, if a celebrity is endorsing your product, it must be true. Like, they must actually like your product or actually use it. Is that in there? Do you think about that? Do you advise people to think about that?
Yeah, there are FTC, Federal Trade Commission rules that have to be complied with, disclosing that you're a paid sponsor of a product or brand. You have to disclose that. And yes, you have to have tried the product and the statements you make about it are true and accurately reflect your beliefs. You can't just think that the product is true garbage and then get behind it. It doesn't mean it has to be your absolute favorite, but you have to have tried and used the product and make true statements about it.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. I remember seeing some Brad Pitt ad recently for, I think it's a serum, or maybe I didn't see all of it, but he's just like, that's my routine. I put on the serum, I put on water, and that's it. I'm done. And you're like, but do you do this forever? Like, now you have this thing and you do that every single day and you will always do that. And I know that's not how you got to be the way that you like as have such nice skin that you have now forever, because this didn't exist before. But, like, okay, how long does that have to be true about him? that
Well,
that's his
certainly
routine.
while they're promoting it, right? That every statement you're making about it needs to be accurate. Um, but yeah, I don't whether they're using it every day or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's between them and the brand or what they're willing to do.
So you obviously don't just advise brands, you also advise celebrities in a lot of instances. So what's the advice that you're giving them on the other side of this when you're negotiating a contract?
Well, it's some of the things that we've talked about, making sure that there's a clear scope of how their name and image can be used. Well, the most common problem we run into is when a celebrity is truly just being a passive investor in a brand. They don't have a separate endorsement deal, but they actively invest in startup or growth stage companies. And so they invest, and then the brand wants to go shout from the mountains that this celebrity is an investor in our brand because that is an implied endorsement. So making sure we're really clear on what they can and cannot do with that information is part of what we advise the celebrity on. Otherwise, they're missing out on endorsement revenue that they could be negotiating or getting in that category elsewhere. The other is if they've got some sort of economic interest, whether it's the equity play or a royalty or play, we want a commitment from the brand that they're going to spend on marketing, what they're going to spend, and that they're going to actively, be building the brand separate and apart from the partnership so that it's more likely to make the royalty or the contingent compensation that's contingent on how the brand does come to life and be realized. So that sort of thing. And obviously negotiating things we talked about how long, the posts have to stay up. Can they be removed afterwards? Should they be removed afterwards? Making sure they're not interacting with things after the term has expired. Protecting against force majeure events. Many times a brand will say, if there's a force majeure event that happens, then we want the term to be extended. We can't have that be open-ended and depends on how long and who's affected by the force majeure event. So those
Tell us
kinds.
again for what force majeure is for those of
Oh,
us who
sorry. Yeah,
have
force
forgotten.
majeure is sort of like things that are outside of your control or anybody's control. So the COVID pandemic would be an example of a force majeure event. A huge hurricane that occurs where an appearance is supposed to happen. Some
Instagram
war.
blackout.
Yeah, those kinds of things. You wanna make sure that it doesn't make the term go on forever, and so that you're locked in this deal with no additional compensation, but you've got the exclusivity and can't go get another partnership.
Yeah, that makes sense to just kind of think about it. Hey, if you're taking equity for this thing, it's like what if you were working there? Like, what would you want to do to make sure this company is actually going to go somewhere, that your
Right.
equity, is going to be worth something? So that makes a lot of sense. Amazing. So, just as we're wrapping up here, Hillary, any other lessons learned or just overall advice for brands thinking about going down this path as an important part of their overall strategy for marketing and branding and reaching consumers?
Yeah, I think a lot of times brands get enamored with the concept of having a celebrity endorser and maybe try to look into that or take that on too early in their life cycle in growth. And either they can't afford it. So they're either having a really thin deal with an A-list celebrity or bigger deal with maybe a more emerging celebrity that doesn't quite have the reach yet, and maybe that's not a great use of your spend. Startups are always on a thin budget and cash flow is king. And maybe that is not the right thing to invest in early on in the brand's growth. Get your product right, get something that people want, build interest organically without spending a huge portion of your budget on some big celebrity deal that may not move the needle. But then when you get the stage that you think it really could move you from this level to the next level, just make sure it's the right partnership, that you've really done your homework and picked the right celebrity and that you've structured it in a way to get the maximum value from it.
I think that's super well said. I totally agree with all of that. And I mean, I think it's true about a lot of marketing in general, also. Just like none of this stuff is the magic bullet. A lot, it's just going to be like, a game of inches until it starts, really accumulating for you. Do you have the availability in retail for this even to matter? Unless, or is really everybody going to be buying your product online? And is that your strategy? So I really like what you said, and then just really having an overall strategy for your business, for your marketing, where this stuff all makes sense as part of that overall. Because otherwise, if you just do a couple of these random deals, the influencers, like consistency, I think is so important, and doing things strategically. Otherwise, these are just great ways to give up your cash and equity that you're going to need for other things like slotting.
Absolutely.
People I think always forget, like, you get impressions on social media, you also get impressions at the store. You get some distribution, like, people see your product a lot.
Completely.
Yeah. All right. Hillary, thank you so much. This has been really interesting. When I was a brand in these early days doing this on my own, I wish I had had a lot of these watch outs and considerations at the start, because if you're doing a deal with a celebrity, like, they're not going to help you to do this, and they can expect you to come correct.
That's right.
So good to have thought through all of this stuff. And I'm sure you'll have a
Well,
lot of.
also when you think through it, beforehand, you look like you know what you're doing and more professional when you approach the celebrities team about making an offer. You've already thought about all the things they're going to ask you. It just comes off better.
Everybody come correct when you go to the. Yeah. Yeah, because they have big teams on this as well. So definitely don't throw yourselves on their mercy.
Completely.
All right, Hillary, thank you so much. We really appreciate you sharing all of your experience here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you loved it, I would so appreciate it if you could leave us a review. You could do it right now. If you're an Apple Podcast, you can scroll to the bottom of our Startup CPG podcast page and click on Write a Review. Leave your company name in there. I will try to read it out. If you're in Spotify, you can click on About and then the star rating icon. If you are a service provider that would like to appear on the Startup CPG podcast, you can email us at partnerships@startupcpg.com. Lastly, if you found yourself grooving along to the music, it is my band. You can visit our website and listen to more. It is superfantastics.com. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.